Okay, hey, welcome back everyone to another episode of Ham Radio Takeaways. I am Jonathan KK7PW, joined by,
Nick, KK7LZM.
all right, Nick, good to see you again.
For sure. Yeah, it's good to
All
be
right,
here.
yeah. So this is our April 2024 episode. Very exciting. Third or fourth episode?
This is number 3.
Number three. Okay, so our third episode, and as we talked about earlier, we are slowly climbing the ladder, both in terms of us getting experience doing our show, but also building our audience and attracting more and more viewers. So, anybody who's watching or listening, if you know anyone that would have interest in what we're doing, feel free to pass along the link and hit the like button and whatever else. Any other recommendations there, Nick? That
Well, yeah, I was just going to say anything that folks are interested in hearing us talk about or explore. I mean, you've got a wealth of experience. So if people have questions, or especially if they want to see demos, I think that the demos that we do are really interesting. So if folks want to see anything in particular, just leave a comment down below, and that's super helpful.
Yeah, that's stuff for future content. And, it could also be a way for us to invite others to join us.
Hmm.
I was thinking for folks that may not know, at least in our region, in our neck of the woods, the local WinLink uh, expert really is Bill N6NBN, and he would be a great guest for us.
For sure.
you
Absolutely.
know so and that's somebody, that's an example of where you and I both and a number of other folks could certainly demonstrate WinLink, but he uses it all the time, and he's got a lot of muscle knowledge that I think would be worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, he's applying it to, I mean, his work with hospitals to help set them up with WinLink as a emergency communication. It's such an inspiring sort of story of using ham radio to do something really meaningful. Like it's
Totally.
amateur, but it's not just for fun, right? So that's
Yeah,
great.
and it's a free resource that every licensed amateur can sign up for and get in on. So maybe we'll talk to him about a future, now that we have the idea.
Yep.
But if there are any other ideas, as Nick was saying, drop us a line or leave a note or whatever you need to do, and we'll try to go from there. All right. So as we usually start off with our shows, we offer a couple of I don't know, experiences or updates that we've encountered over the last month. So Nick, what do you got for us this time?
Yeah, well, I've got a blog post that I read about. Let me pull it up here real quick. This was someone who I think that they are looking to get their license, but while they're getting ready, they've got an RTL SDR, right? It's just a little software-defined radio, it's a radio they plug into their computer, receive
Yeah,
only.
let me pull this out of my drawer right here, and I'll put up the camera and show. So it's this kind of mine. I guess mine did come a little rubber boot on it,
Hmm.
but anyway, that's. Oh, there you go. You've got a picture of it. Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
right here. So,
Yep. All right.
um, yeah, so this person they got one, and they set a goal for themselves, and I thought that this was also really clever, right? So getting an SDR that's receive only, great idea. I think that especially for people that want to get into the hobby, or they want to get their license but they're not there yet, or they are thinking about getting into HF and they don't want to put out you can spend $1,000 on an HF rig easily, right? But one of these little SDRs that's receive only, but it's cost $30, right? So it's a great
Right.
way to get started. The other thing that they did, though, that I thought was great, was they set themselves a goal of doing 50 things in, I think, 4 weeks. I think they gave themselves a time box and a goal of just 50 different little projects, right? And they documented all of it, right? And so you can sort of follow along with what they did. And so some of the things that they did were really basic, right? Listen to FM radio, right? I mean, obviously you can get an FM radio and listen to FM radio, but it's really interesting to see in the waterfall, right? You can see the radio spectrum and as it's getting used by commercial FM radio, and you start to, put some context around some of these terms you learn about in the exams, like frequency modulation or amplitude modulation. Well, what does that actually look like on a spectrum? And getting one of these cheap little $30 SDRs lets you see that, right? But there's a lot of other neat stuff too, right? Like tracking aircraft with ADS-B. I thought that was a really neat little project that they did, and they talk about the tools that they use, the different pieces of software, and all kinds of, right? They've got 50 of these, and these are like 50 projects that someone could do that gets them into radio, really gets them into the nitty gritty of it. And I just thought that
Yeah.
that was an awesome blog post.
Excellent. And the thing is that look at the software program they're using. Are they
Oh
using this?
yeah, I think they're using SDR plus plus.
Yeah, SDR plus plus.
Yeah,
So, just by practicing each of these, you really get to learn that software program.
exactly. But that's not all, right? They used I think they used SDR Angel. Let's see if I can. Yeah,
Yes, they
SDR
did. Yeah.
Angel
Yeah, there was Angel.
for decoding the ADS-B. They did some stuff with SSTV that they what did they use? Yeah, QSSTV. I've never used that myself, but this is great, right? They're talking about all of these different, connection points that you can plug together to do stuff, right? And it's such a
Awesome. Yeah.
inspiring story. Yeah,
Yes, on a $30 device.
that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic. All right. Well, that'll be in the show notes,
yeah, for sure.
right?
I'll definitely include that link there.
Fantastic. All right. So, anything else?
No, that's what I got.
Okay. So, what I'm going to share, uh, just as a point of context here, I'm going to offer 4 QSL quickies again, just to introduce and show off a couple of cards that I received over the last month. Uh, but just to mention that for the feature of this episode, we're going to be talking about generally what a QSL card is, how do we get them, how do we send and receive them, how do we make them, and among other things. So, this is sort of a way into that eventual conversation later on. So,
Yeah, that's
we'll hear.
fantastic. This is one of the things I love about being able to do this show is I feel like I talk to hams all the time. They're like, "Oh, you got to get QSL cards," and I'm like, "How do I do that?" It's like it's easy. Don't worry about it. It's like, well, what? How do I get started, right? So it'll be so cool to see all of these details. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. So, uh, I I probably I don't know how many I get a month, but I get quite a few. And these are cards that I pulled out because to me anyway, I find them to be interesting. They're all interesting, but these are particularly for me anyway, unique, I suppose. And it's probably because they either represent a new country for me, meaning I've confirmed via QSL Card Exchange and Logbook of the World Exchange that we have worked, and therefore my world country count has increased by one or X number, whatever. These are new to me, and or they're just cool looking. So here's the first one.
And that's just to give some context, right? When people, I feel like people often say like, so wait, what's the point of QSL cards? Like, especially if you talk to a non-ham, right? You
Yeah.
talk to your cousin or your aunt or your uncle, and you'd say, hey, I'm getting into ham radio. I'm doing this thing with QSL cards. That's sort of the reason, right? That's one of the reasons, at least, is it's
Yeah, I
cool
mean,
to get stuff from foreign countries. And
yeah, I mean, I actually not only save the QSL cards, but I save the envelopes sometimes because the stamps that are used are cool, you know. Uh, but I'll save some of my remarks for later. But suffice to say, one of the main reasons why radio ops over the years, over the decades, over the last 100 years or so, have used QSL cards is to confirm a QSO that they've had with another radio op. And that's to say that when we turn off our rigs or we let go of the push to talk or we no longer send with our Morse code key, that transaction is done and it's gone, meaning our logbook may record and show what we actually confirmed or achieved, with an interaction, but there's no other physical artifact, other than our memory of that. So QSL cards are a great way to make an archive, a visual physical archive of that which is just RF. And there are anyway, so I'll say more about that in a little while. So the first one I'm going to show is the Mike Papa 7 Delta X-ray, which I need to figure out, Nick, the
Here, I
best way
can
for
pull
us
up.
to do.
Yeah, I can pull up their QRZ page. Mike Papa, what's the call sign?
Mike Papa 7 Delta X-ray. Yeah, that's it right there in Guernsey. So this was a DXpedition, and the remark that he wrote on the back of it. This is from the fellow on the right there, Jay. He's the fellow that sent me my card. He said, "Nice signal in a pileup. Well done." So apparently, at the time, this was in December of last year, early December. So I don't remember what the conditions were at the time, but for us, where you and I live, getting into Northern Europe around the UK is not easy for us at times.
Mm-hmm.
It can be quite challenging for various reasons. And so to get a report of a nice signal was a nice add-on for him to share. So anyway, that was Guernsey Island. That's an iota, an island on the air. So for anyone that's interested, yep, that's where it is. So if anyone is interested in uh, collecting islands, there's a whole IOTA Islands on the Air campaign that one can be a part of and collect as many of the islands around the world as you possibly can. And so anyway, I work
Great.
Guernsey.
Yeah, and here is this the right site? iota-world.org. Islands
Yes.
on the Air. Yeah,
Yep.
that is fantastic.
Yeah.
I will add this to my spotting plugin for SDR++.
Right.
Another way to make some cool contacts.
Oh, yes. And working IOTAs is a lot of fun because, it's not always the case, but sometimes, more than just sometimes, it's somebody who's sitting in a beach chair with their feet in the water, and they're working a little QRP rig or something. And their
Mm-hmm.
antenna is a vertical that's about 10 or 15 feet off the beach, the shoreline in salt water or whatever. So the circumstances can be quite diverse, and it's kind of fun to do that. So
Yeah, and
all
these
right.
spots
So,
are pretty fresh too. So yeah, seems like a lot of activity.
oh yeah, there's always something. All right, so here's the second one. Let me hold this up. This is Victor Echo 4 right there. Victor Echo 4 Golf Victor stroke 6Y in Jamaica. So this was a fellow who was traveling. His card may be down below if you scroll. I don't know. So I don't know if he put his Jamaican card up on
Oh,
his
there it
website.
is.
There he is. That's it. All right. So he was operating on vacation, or let's see what he said right. Okay, I missed it. But I don't think it was a DXpedition. I think he was there vacationing, and I worked him last February. So this one, did it come through the bureau? I think it did. I think this one came through the bureau. So just as an indicator of how long it can take for a card to work its way through, and we'll talk about that a little later when I get into the send and receive of QSL cards. But anyway, so there's another IOTA, and a Jamaican 6Y5. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Jamaica, so for many years, or a number of years anyway, I was my call slash 6Y5 with permission from the Jamaican Telecommunications Bureau, I think it was. I don't remember. Their FCC equivalents.
Right. So the story here is that this guy, he lives in Winnipeg, right?
Yeah,
And he was traveling there and got a special suffix to pop on the end of his
permission.
call
Yeah.
sign
Hmm.
and operated from Jamaica. And that's when he made the contact. And in fact, he had a
Yes,
QSL card especially for that trip.
exactly.
Yeah, that
And
just
he
sounds like
was
a
in
ton of
Negril.
fun.
Yeah. So this is an example, like we'll talk about how he may have his own VE4 cards, but he also made a special card just for Jamaica
Right.
with Bob Marley on them.
Yeah.
And he was in
Yeah.
Negril,
And
which is a nice part of Jamaica.
apparently he's done this a bunch, right? He's got another one for St. John in the U.S. Virgin
Hmm.
Islands. So
Yeah.
yeah, what a fun thing to do, right? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Now that's Montego Bay, so that's a different one. So apparently the one I have is from Negril.
Oh, neat.
So he may have actually,
I
city
see.
specific.
So this 6Y5 is different than the one that you had. Is that right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow. Okay. That's
Yeah.
very cool.
Well, that's kind of neat. Okay, here's the third one. Papa 44 X-ray in Aruba. Here's another island,
Papa
another
44
Caribbean island.
X-ray.
Yep, that's it right there. All right, so this was a DXpedition, and they put Papa 44 X-ray on the air. And for me, I worked them in November of 22. All right, so that's how long it took for it to work. Now I may have had this card. Did this arrive? It may have arrived recently. I don't remember. I think it. I think it did. I think I got it recently. But it's not uncommon for QSL cards to take quite a while to work their way through the system and work its way through the bureau. And it's partly that the system may take time, but it's also that these DXpeditions can have tens of thousands of contacts. And if you request a QSL card and they've got thousands to process, it just may take time.
Hmm.
So
So
anyway, so
wait, so
that's kind of
this was an expedition between November 19 and December 8th, 2022. And in how long do you think it took you to receive it?
I'd say at least, well, I first off, my disclaimers, I can't remember if I just received this or I've had it a while.
Hmm.
Okay. But it's so I can't speak specifically to this one at the
Okay,
moment.
sure.
And I don't really want to say that they're taking forever and a day to, because they may not have,
Yeah,
right?
okay. But
Right.
typically it can take weeks or
It can
months.
vary. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be relatively quick. I mean, I've never, I don't think it's for me, it's received shorter than a month.
Hmm.
But, sometimes they come more quickly than one expects, and sometimes it can be well over a year.
Hmm.
So it really depends. But
And so this particular call sign, was this an expedition call sign?
yes,
Interesting.
but yeah, you can see special call sign for the
Ah,
WPXCW,
yeah,
but that was for 2023. Mine's a 22 card,
I see.
so the Papa 44 X-ray probably is a contest station. Uh, I don't really. Yeah, it may well be a contest station. It appears to be on the back of this card,
Yeah,
and
Bavarian Contest Club is what it says on the QRZ page.
so I probably made contact with them
I
during
see.
whatever
Yeah,
that
yeah. In fact, here what they're saying is they first operation was CQ WPX in 2017, then in 2022,
CQ
and
Worldwide.
yeah, see exactly. Yeah, and then back to WPX in 2023. Very cool.
Yeah. Now I don't. I would not expect to get a card from them for a QSO during a contest. I probably worked them before or after the I probably worked them during the contest, but for this QSL card, it may have been because I had a brief QSO before it as a warm up or something. So hard to say. Anyway, it's kind of a cool card. And here's my last one for this time. This one I did just get. This is Tango Juliet 9 Mike Delta. In Cameroon. There it is.
Wow.
That's the QSL card down there. Now, this was a first one for me. It's a new one. I needed Cameroon for my country count. And if you go to, you're in QRZ right now?
Yeah.
So if you go on detail, you can see that it's 7,900 miles away.
Oh yeah, wow.
Right. So that's a haul.
No kidding. Very cool.
So the report I got, did he give me a report? It just said 599, but my memory is, because it wasn't that long ago, my memory is that I heard him well, and the time of day, was this a 20 meter? Let me just look. Yeah, 20 meter band, time of day, all things considered, probably is the case that West Coast 6 land and 7 land were being worked well. I won't say easily, and certainly in the midst of pileups, there's a lot of folks that want to get Cameroon, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But probably this is the case that conditions were very favorable, and back in November. So that's a DXpedition that was there back in that time. Anyway, so those are my QSL quickies, and you can sort of get in on this and get all kinds of ways to display the cards. Mine aren't really displayed. Mine are just piled, really. But there are a lot of radio ops that put them in frames or sleeves or whatever it is, and put them on their walls and decorate their whole shack and everything. And so you can be very artistic with it.
Yeah. Yep. I've got my 2 QSL cards in a little envelope over here.
Yes. Well, those are important because those were your first.
That's right.
I have my first one, and that's important.
Yeah.
It's a piece. These are little pieces of history. They really are.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, so our next item, is it now time for us to make a visit with the double X Factor?
I think so, yeah.
All right. So let's cut to our segment with Dave, Alpha Alpha 7 X-ray X-ray, who's going to give us another training talk.
Yep. We'll see you guys in a minute.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. And once again, as we do each month, we invite Dave, Alpha Alpha 7 X-ray X-ray, who's our 10-minute trainer who delivers the double X Factor, on how we learn about the magic of radio, the magic of amateur radio in particular. And each month, Dave joins us with a particularly juicy topic that is not only relevant to our ongoing learning and education, but it's the stuff of the course curriculum and the content that, if anybody out there is looking to earn their technician or upgrade to another license class, this is in line with that curriculum that you'd want to know more about. So the 10-minute trainer is just a sweetener. It just sort of gets the ball rolling. And at the end, we'll mention where folks can go for more information, to learn more about these topics. So Dave, without further ado, what do you got for us this month?
Well, thank you, Jonathan and Nick. So this time I thought I would talk a little bit about how radio works, what's going on under the hood. in essence, what we're doing with radio and with electrical engineering in general and with the physics of it all is doing useful things with electrons. They call it electronics, after all. Let's make those electrons do something interesting. You can put an electrical signal into an antenna and create an electromagnetic radio wave with it and have that go through space, picked up on another antenna, get converted back into an electrical signal, which then, gets filtered and amplified and turned back into sound with a speaker on the other end. So I thought I would show a little bit about how this works. So start here with amplitude modulation. So modulation is something we do to what we call a carrier wave to carry information. And amplitude modulation is one of the simplest forms of this. What I'm showing on the top here is an oscilloscope tracing showing cello playing a D note. And then below is the modulated carrier wave. So you see the carrier wave's at a much higher frequency, but its amplitude follows this modulating signal. So it's a very simple concept. And that's what you transmit out with your antenna. So let me show you a radio. And the simplest radio that I know of is the crystal radio, like we talked about a couple sessions ago. This consists of an antenna, and you have something to filter it with. So you have a coil or an inductor with a capacitor here. This arrow through it means it's variable. So this is how you tune it. What happens here is that the electrical energy, it goes back and forth between the capacitor and the inductor at a resonant frequency. That frequency changes as you change the capacitance. So that's how you tune it. And then you need something to detect the signal or demodulate it. And that's what this diode does. And it simply lets the current flow one direction but not the other. That's all it's doing. And then you need something to listen with. So your headphones are an earpiece. You also would need a ground connection if you have an external antenna, or you can do a loop antenna like this one I made. This is 6 feet on a diameter. 4, 5, 6 turns of wire is good enough. Here's the actual rest of it here. Variable capacitor. The diode is just this little thing right there. Here's the earpiece.
So Dave, is that a VFO, a variable frequency oscillator? Is that what they mean when they say variable frequency oscillator?
Yeah, that's, I think that's a good question, Nick. When you tune, there's a local oscillator and you're tuning the front end of the radio. So there's actually another oscillator involved in the actual tuning. And so my guess is that the variable frequency oscillator part that of the terminology comes from that, whereas this is simply changing your filter.
I see.
But it's doing the same thing. So yeah, I mean, you could certainly still call it that, a VFO, variable frequency oscillator, or simply a tuner. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I just want to mention, and I could be wrong about this, but my thought was that the VFO is actually in relationship with another element that is generating a wave at a particular frequency, and then it gets canceled out, and then the resulting is the frequency that you then tune with or that you use. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, in essence, that's what's going on. You do a mixing function at the front end, you change the frequency, and then you can put it through an intermediate frequency stage of filters and just filter the heck out of it. And so that's why you need the local oscillator and oscillators at the front end. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, there's probably a whole other conversation we could have about.
Oh yeah, another 2 or 3 10-minute sessions right there.
Right.
But, so let's see. How does this detection work? Okay. Well, here's the original cello, note here. Here's your modulated carrier. In this case, it's a 1 megahertz or 1 million cycles per second carrier. Well, okay. What if you just fed this straight into your speaker? Well, nothing would happen. The problem is that, it'll go positive, the carrier wave will go positive, but then it goes an equal distance negative, then it goes positive again, and then negative. It just averages out to zero. You feed it into the speaker, nothing happens. But what if you cut it in half? So all it ever does is go positive or negative, either way works. Well, then, the speaker is driven positive and then less positive and more positive and less positive. It follows the modulation. And you can filter it, use a capacitor or resistor, filter a little bit, smooth it out. And look, you're back to your original signal. So that's what the diode does. It's cutting the signal in half so you can hear it. And that's it's literally as simple as that. So the minimum you need for a radio is an antenna to pick up the signal, a filter, in this case, again, what we call an LC circuit, the capacitor and the inductor, passing energy back and forth, something to detect it with, in this case, just the diode, and then something to listen with. If you want a more sophisticated radio, well, you're going to want a power supply, a mixer to change the frequency so you can have that intermediate frequency filtering function that gets into what's called a super heterodyne radio. That's really a helpful trick. And then, of course, amplification. In order to do all this filtering and all this magic, you need to keep amplifying the signal. You want to have an audio amplifier at the end so you can hear it much more loudly. And that's it. You just make clever use of these various components one after the other. And then in an actual radio, the circuit, looks something like this. This is from an Elenco AM/FM radio kit that you can build. I actually highly recommend it. I built one. I'm going to show you in a second. It's a lot of fun. It reminded me of my days building Heath kits as a kid. There's kits that you can put together. And so you can see it's complex, but if you break it down into its various pieces, it's not so bad. And one thing I want to show is I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but there's a tiny little diode right there. That's the detector for the AM radio. This bottom section is the AM radio. So all the, those various components are still in here. It's a little harder with all this electrical engineering complexity to just, understand it all, but it's all right there. So here's that radio. Okay, that's a
nice
kit. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It KK7PW,
its management, or other advertisers. This program is
wow, it's loud.
Yeah, that's the having the power supply, the battery, and all the amplification. That's what it does for you.
Nice.
So I highly recommend that. You can buy them online. It's called Elenco. It's a lot of fun, frankly. It's a great.
And I think we said this before, but you don't even need to know what all of those things are doing exactly to put that together. And you certainly don't need to put that together to do radio, right? Like
no, absolutely not. Yeah. But I'll say this, that Elenco kit, it comes with a manual where they do explain stuff. So if you're interested, you can read about, well, this is what's going on in this section, this is what's going on in this section. And if you have, a voltmeter or better yet, if you have an oscilloscope or can borrow one, it shows you, well, try this and try that. It's a fantastic teaching tool.
Yeah. And a club, your local club is probably a great place to find someone that might have an oscilloscope that you could do that kind of thing.
Right.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just going to mention, Dave, not knowing that you were going to show the Elenco product, I did want to mention that years ago I built, this is a little Pixie transmitter and receiver, and I think it used to be on eBay for about $5 or something, right? Very inexpensive. Now, when I built this, I actually soldered the crystal in place, and in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done that, because I can plug in multiple crystals and change. This is for one particular frequency, and if I can read the fine print here, it's the CW frequency, and it's 7.023, I think it said. think it's 7.023. So if I want to go 7.024, I need to be able to pull this out and get a crystal that's resonant at 7.024 and plug that in there. So, but I soldered it. All right. So it's okay. But it's a nifty, the only thing about this, I don't know how yours performs in proximity to loud AM or other stations, but this one can get overwhelmed pretty easily.
Mhm.
And so when I've used this occasionally on a 9-volt battery like yours was, I have a low pass filter that allows for, all that other noise to be, dampened at least. It's not completely zero.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point, Jonathan. And that's where the magic of all the extra filtering comes in. Much of what you were seeing in the schematic I showed earlier is intermediate frequency filtering. It's just filter, filter, filter. So instead of a broad filter function where a powerful station over here may overwhelm what you're trying to hear over here, you filter it tightly. And
Right.
so that's that's what you get with a super heterodyne radio. That was Edwin Armstrong's invention back, I think it was in the 1920s. Just a phenomenal invention.
Absolutely. Well, so we'll add some links into our show notes for some of these radio kit products. And so, folks can go and check out, and a great way to learn, not just individually, but perhaps as a club project, a great way to learn how to handle a soldering iron, how to solder with precision, and how to get yourself out of a jam if you put a blob someplace that it shouldn't be, which I'm not going to admit it. That's but I'm just saying.
We've all been there, Jonathan.
Oh,
I'll admit
yes.
it. I've
Oh,
had to
my.
desolder multiple times. Yeah. No, in
Yeah.
fact, just add to that thought, Jonathan, that, for your parents out there, you never know where these things might lead. Mom and Dad, Santa Claus got me a Radio Shack 65-in-1 kit. Sorry. Yeah, Santa Claus. 65-in-1 kit when I was 11 years old. I just loved that thing. I used it to death. I should have grabbed it for this. It's just sitting around the corner here. I still have it. Great educational tool.
Yeah. Well, it is. I sometimes think about radio generally and amateur radio in particular as sort of a mushroom spore, and you
Yeah.
never know when the spore is going to fruit.
Yep, that's
You
right.
never know when, or it's. Do I want to say it's viral? But anyway, you never know when the virus is going to manifest. Some new behavior or some new
and
reaction.
it grows, right?
It grows. Yes.
Starts with the one thing, and then the other thing, and then the next thing, and then whatever the next shiny thing is.
Right.
Exactly.
So, Dave, if folks want to get more information about the magic of how radios work and related topics, where might they go?
So we do offer classes. I put together a series of videos on the, to prepare for getting your technician level license as well as the general level license. Maybe someday I'll get to the amateur extra, all of which is available on our website at the West Seattle Amateur Radio Club. And I invite you to look at those. Forgot to mention in prior episodes, you can speed it up as you're watching, which I actually recommend. YouTube has that function. You go to the right lower corner, 1.5 or 2 times speeds, and you get through more quickly, while still understanding what's being said. So that's a good, place. And there are all kinds of resources out there. Again, these kits I highly recommend too.
Great. Well, Dave, as always, thank you again for sharing the double X factor, and we will see you next
guys
month.
next time. Thanks, Jonathan and Nick.
All righty.
Great. That was excellent.
Yeah, that was a great feature. Thanks to Dave, Alpha 7 X-ray again for another segment of the double X factor. And anyway, we can always learn a lot there are things that may be familiar to us, topics that may be familiar, and then always something new to learn, and it's a good thing. I wanted to mention that in addition to that little Pixie radio kit that I mentioned that I built years ago from eBay, there are many different flavors of simple to relatively complicated, let's say, kits that one can get, a whole range of prices, everything else. And I just wanted to show an example of another version of a super heterodyne receiver and transmitter kit that one can put together. This is the Tuna Tin kit. And if you go to qrpme.com, you can buy one of these kits and basically make your own, for a few
in a
bucks.
little tuna can. How about
Yeah,
that?
in a little tuna can.
That's great.
And they work. The thing is, bear in mind that whoever's in our audience and wherever they happen to live, if you're in an urban area that has a lot of noise around it, the front end on these receivers are going to probably get overwhelmed pretty quickly, especially with AM, right? But it's not a deal breaker. It's fun to put together. They work off a little 9-volt battery or whatever, and you can always take them with you. Then that's the thing. Go to a park then, where the noise floor may be lower, and have a go at it. There's a little keyer. Look at that. Did you see the
Yeah.
little keyer?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, look at that.
That's neat. Oh, and it just comes as parts. Yeah. Yeah, I ordered one of those Pixie kits that came in the mail finally. And I mean, it's really, seriously, it's just like there's little ICs and there's capacitors and all kinds of little bits and bobs to solder in there. So
yeah. And
this,
it's really
I think I
good.
told you, the guy, so this was delayed. He couldn't ship it for whatever reason. He was like it took like 3-4 weeks to get to me. He sent me an email and said, "Hey, I'm so sorry for the delay. I threw in a couple of dollars into your package to make up for it." I mean, I think I only spent like $15 on it. And the guy stuck in like three singles into the package when it arrived. Yeah, he was super cool.
That is cool. Well, so on that one, I can't remember what the through hole size is or whatever, but if there's a way, we can talk about it offline. But I've soldered all of my crystals in accidentally. I shouldn't have done that. And if you can make yours in such a way that yours aren't, I don't know where I put mine, but if you can
have a socket or something to plug it into.
Exactly. That way you can just switch out the crystals.
Right, because that's the thing that's actually tuning it into a particular frequency. Very cool.
Great. All right. Well, anyway, so everybody, qrpme.com is one of many different sources for kits that you can. Oh, another one. If you look at this, is another one that I like because now this is a little more complicated, but it's more functional than the QRP-Me. I'll just mention real quick. If you look for the ultimate QRP rig, and Hans, I forget his call. It's a G0 call.
Ultimate QRP rig?
Yeah, Ultimate 2 or Ultimate QRP rig. It's a
Ultimate.
Yeah, keep going.
Ultimate 3 QRP Labs?
Yeah, QRP Labs. That's what it is. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So,
pull that up for everyone.
So, QRP Labs. I met Hans when we were traveling in Japan years ago, and got back and ordered one of his kits. And what he was doing then may have evolved into more of a business for him. I don't know. But at the time, he was just really into, almost like as a hobby enterprise, to just create really small, lightweight QRP do-it-yourself kits that have a lot of functionality. And so the one that I bought, I think is obsolete now. I think he's upgraded and evolved, and those are the more current
Mm-hmm.
ones. Fits in the palm of your hand, and you can run not only sideband and CW, but various other digital modes. You can run Whisper, among many other things. And they're just cool, and they're priced right.
Yeah.
They're inexpensive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a transceiver for $70, that's crazy. A multi-mode 5-watt transceiver for $100.
Yes.
That's nuts. What are,
Yeah.
I mean, the modes on this thing? Really neat. Yeah, all down 80 to 20 megahertz. Very cool.
And it has an aluminum case and enclosure that you can put around it. And all right. So on another episode,
Yeah.
I'll
we could
show.
spend ages on this. Yeah.
Yeah. But I built mine in, I think it took more than a weekend. It's been quite a few years now. I don't remember exactly, but and they're not for the faint of heart. They do. You really need to develop your soldering skills in order to take on something like this. Unless it's pre-built, he'll build it for you if you want. But a good place to start is like the tuna tin can or the Pixie,
Yeah.
because it really allows you to learn how to make your soldering joints the way they ought to be.
Right. Yeah, and that's totally a skill that practice. I mean, even just the practice you get from doing one kit like that makes you so much better.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so let's see. So what do we got up next? We have a few.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Let me just, there you go.
All right, no worries. Okay, so we've got a few interesting Hamfest events coming up. So our queue for this month includes 2 that are this month and then 2 that are coming up that hopefully it's a save the date reference. You know, don't miss out on these. And we'll probably have more of these in the coming episodes, because as we look ahead over the summer months and into the early fall, there are quite a few Hamfests that are worth attending, but you gotta, make sure you remember them, not forget like I do sometimes. So the first one is the Three Rivers Amateur Radio Club is having its Hamfest, and I think this one's in Idaho. Is that
Let's see here.
talked about? I think.
Where's the?
Yeah, it's the Kamea Hamfest. Oh, maybe this is not the same one. Did you have that up for?
Yeah, they say organizes annual Hamfest in Kamea, Idaho.
Oh yeah. Okay, that is the one. Yeah. So that's coming up, and that's on April 20th. You're at the website. I didn't go to that website, so I don't know if there are.
Here's the
prizes.
ARRL pages for it.
Okay, but one thing I want to mention is that sometimes, not always, these Hamfests sometimes they have program features that are accessible remotely, like Dayton sometimes, or other larger Hamfests allow for access to their programming even if you can't make the trip. And sometimes Contest University, where you can learn skills on how to be an effective and use software programs to help improve your score and so on. So that's one thing to bear in mind, that even if you can't physically be at these Hamfests, there sometimes are ways for you to get there virtually. The second is that they have hourly and then either mid or end of day grand prize giveaways. And sometimes the tickets for those giveaways one can purchase online. Usually is the case that you have to be present to win the hourly, but you do not always have to be present to win the grand prize. So imagine that the grand prize might be a $2,000 or $3,000 HF rig, and the raffle tickets can vary. Let's just say you could get 2 or 3 tickets for $10.
Mm-hmm.
So you use PayPal to buy $10 worth of tickets or $20 worth of tickets, and you're in the raffle, and you're helping their cause because hopefully they get more than what they paid for that rig. But you might be lucky and win an HF rig that you might not otherwise have purchased outright. So anyway, keep your eye on these ham fests, and check out the websites and look into whether or not they have these kinds of not all of them do, but
Mm-hmm.
many have virtual raffle tickets for sale, and you can participate. Okay,
Very
so
cool.
this is the one in Idaho, and then the second one, we have the Comox Valley Amateur Radio Club and Electronics Swap Meet up on Vancouver Island. So both of these are in Seven Land. I didn't include any this time for other call areas, but I'm sure anybody wherever you happen to live in our audience, get online and just Google Hamfests. These
Mm-hmm.
are some of the more popular ones that we share for our call area. But
Very cool.
all right. Third one is the big CPAC Hamfest and ARRL Northwestern Division Convention.
Yep. And that's
At
SEA
Seaside.
pack.
SEA hyphen pack. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So that's in Seaside, Oregon. It's very popular. A gazillion people go.
Mm-hmm.
They spend time walking the beach. They check out the swap meet. They go to the various convention programs. They win door prizes. I mean, there's all kinds of things to do. And like many of the swap meets, not all of them, but many of them, this one also happens to be co-located in a place where there's lots of things for your family that may not be as enamored with the ham radio things going on. They can find other things to do around town.
Oh,
Right?
neat.
There's other stores and shops and things they can go to. So while whoever's in the convention, everybody else can be out doing whatever they do. So anyway,
Very
that's a
cool.
lot of fun. And then the last one, so that's a save the date one, by the way, because that's happening from May 31st, June 1st, and 2nd.
Right.
So that's not this month, it's next month. But we want to encourage, make a note of that for your calendar. And then the last one, another save the date, is the Pacific Northwest DX Convention. So I may have mentioned in past episodes that the DX clubs in BC, British Columbia, the DX club here in Washington State, California is there, and I guess Oregon, the Willamette Valley, or some other host. There's a rotation of DX conventions, and it so happens that this year the Western Washington Club is hosting the DX convention, and so it'll be in Everett on August 9th through 11th. So it's really it's fun, and it's a great opportunity to sit in on sessions that highlight takeaways, I'll say, or things to learn about DXpeditions, contest skills, radio reviews, new modes. I mean, there's all kinds of things. So get online and go to the website, and you can see what the program will offer. There's also hotel accommodations nearby, so it's a good thing.
Oh yeah, details forthcoming.
Yeah.
But great, yeah. But they've already got the hotel information there, so
yeah.
Very cool.
So make reservations, and I'm a member of the DX Club, and it's sort of a way to just give a little bit of marketing or attention to this really important event.
Yeah, very cool.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, so let's see. So that's it for the upcoming Ham Fests, at least what we have to offer. There's a lot of other things going on, but that's just what we're covering at the moment. So this month, there has been and there continues to be a lot of DX activity. I worked, by the way, the Alpha 80K or Alpha 8 Oscar Kilo. It's not 80. Alpha 8 Oscar Kilo in Liberia. And the Victor Papa 6 Golf, which is Pitcairn Island.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked those two. I don't think I worked the other ones. Maybe I did. I'd have to look at my logbook. But anyway, we've got some good ones coming up. And if you can just click back to the main page, again, it will show that it's possible to read into these locations. So right there. So the Tango Mike 2, Tango Mike 24 uniform, that's coming up in the Caribbean. And then let's go back to
May 5th through the 10th.
Yeah. So Niue's coming up in the South Pacific, and
great.
Tango X-Ray 7 Whiskey. So there's a lot of IOTAs to be worked and added to your collection.
Very cool. And there's that Liberia expedition that you said you worked.
Yeah.
Neat.
That was fun. So you can see that's a Czech DXpedition team that's putting Liberia on the air this time. So. And scroll down to the next one. See that 3 Delta 2 Charlie 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 is Conway Reef. All right, so that'll be cool.
So this is just some atoll in the ocean. Wow. Oh yeah, they've even got the map there.
So pretty cool.
You got to zoom out a lot to see where it is. There you go.
Yeah, look at that.
All right. East of Australia, north of New Zealand.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of exciting when you can work those locations that are so remote, and knowing that the pileups can be pretty tough to get through. So having some success in actually working them, that's a nice feather in the cap. So
great.
Keep an ear out for 3 Delta 2. So just as an aside, we don't have to. We'll go here in a moment, or we'll talk about it. But there are a number of DX cluster websites that one can use to be alerted when these types of special event stations or DXpedition stations come on the air. One of them is dxheat.com. Just show DX Heat real quick. So DX Heat, and there are quite a few popular DX cluster options, but here you can filter by your modes and by your bands of preference. So you don't have to have everything show up all at once and squint.
Yeah, so for instance, I have only phone and 20 meters filtered right now, but you know, maybe I'm looking for something wider. I can add in 40 meters and 10 meters also. And I really like the band activity chart that they give you, so to give you a sense of, you know, for folks in North America, where are they making contacts? It's pretty cool.
Exactly. So that gives a visual indication of what bands are open, and in this case, in North America, you can change the continents depending on where you happen to be,
right?
And it'll show up differently. But so it looks like 20 is doing quite well right now, and 15 is doing quite well for the EU. So anyway, keep an eye on these types of websites for those DXpeditions coming online, and you'll work on.
Very cool.
Right. All right. So what do we got next? So now is time for our feature conversation that we're gonna begin right now. So Nick, I know what you and I talked about was doing I'm going to say a well-rounded but not necessarily too deep walk into QSL cards and the whole world of sending and receiving QSL. So what I did is I pulled together, I don't know, 5 or 6 different elements that one can think about to get in on this sort of activity of QSL card
Hmm.
trading, if you will, in amateur radio. So here's the first element that I want to share. This is one example of many that one can Google or look on the website and search for, but this is a QSL card printer that I have used for my cards. And just as a reminder, this is my QSL card. All right, so
I've got one of those.
that's right, yeah. So it's printed, and then also, to my preference, the printer made a custom reverse side or side 2 with the information layout that I prefer when I
Hmm.
send my QSL card. So just to key on this particular one, because I've used this one. I've used others in the past, but this guy is up in Vancouver, BC, and
Mm.
nearby and easy, and the prices can vary. This guy was affordable and produced a nice product.
Hmm.
Fully customizable. You can either the price points for QSL cards can vary depending on selecting something that they already have made up
Hmm.
of a certain quality of card stock, a certain printer quality, numbers of colors, so on and so forth, versus a higher price card that's fully customized and it's all of reflecting the information that you provide them.
Hmm.
So I provided them my own graphic, and then I used one of their templates, among other things. I think I asked them to change a couple of things, but for the most part, I was using a template that they had on the backside. So you order cards. I think I ordered 500. There was a discount for whatever that bulk
Hmm.
range was, and
Oh yeah,
I
that's
made
pretty good.
yeah. So I
100 is
made mine.
60, 500 is 80. That's a
Yeah,
great discount. Yeah.
yeah, it's really good. So what I did is I made mine. I think it's 3.5 by 5, maybe. I don't
Mm.
remember what the dimensions were, but it happened to fit with a stack of envelopes that I had on hand. And so I didn't have to, these do not come with envelopes, right? They're just the
Hmm.
cards. So I had a stack of envelopes that I found. I mean, when I say a stack, I mean probably 1,000 that I found at a thrift shop, like a Goodwill shop, for $2. And I came home with all of these blank envelopes, and I knew that I could use these for my QSL cards. And so I just had my QSL cards printed to fit so that I could use those. So, there's different ways to sort of, game the system a little bit.
Hmm.
But anyway, so this is one example of how to get them printed, and the turnaround time was a couple of weeks. But the good thing about this guy, and I'm sure the others are as responsive, is that before they hit print, they will back and forth via email with you with the proof copies. Does this look the way you want it to look?
Hmm.
And I'll say, no, what I'd like is to be, tweak this and do that. Okay. And then they'll send it back one more time. So you'll be able to get absolutely what you want before they print, and then you pay, and then they print and ship.
Hmm.
So it's really it's a good thing. So anyway, all right. So secondly, let's go to the next link.
Pull that up here.
So once you have your QSL cards, you need, what I do is I utilize my membership with ARRL to use some of their QSL service functions. So for our purposes, what I'm going to do is simply say that there's an incoming and outgoing service. So let's start here with the outgoing. So basically what you do is you prepare your QSL cards, and in a little while at the very end, I'll show you at least one way that you can prepare your cards using a logging program that can help you print your labels. I usually write mine by hand because I don't do tons of QSL cards. If I were, I would probably do a printer label function. But in any event, the Bureau has, as it said above, can you scroll to the top there?
Yeah.
It has a structure where $2 for 10 or fewer cards, $3 for 11 to 20, or by weight. And I have not used the outgoing recently, but 20 years ago or whatever I did, and it worked very well. And I had probably 200 cards or more, and I organized them, put them in sequence, mailed them off, and they worked.
So the story is that you've got folks that you want to send them to. You prepare all the cards on your side, fill them out, do all the stuff, and then bundle all of that together, send it to the outgoing bureau, the QSL service, and they handle sending each individual one out to the ultimate destinations.
Yeah, to the corresponding, I'm going to say local, but maybe national, depending on how that's organized, to their receiving organization, and then they distribute in country. So bear in mind that ARRL does not encourage sending cash and other forms of payment. Send check or money order. Make sure your call sign's on there. It's really easy peasy. It's not that complicated.
And this, I guess, this is different than you just sending them yourself, because if it's international, they handle all the complexity of like what the postage and everything is. Is that right?
Indeed, yeah. So for that price, you're getting their familiarity with how to send these off. And if you're wanting to send cards to Germany to a Delta Lima op, well, yours is going to be sent along with a lot of other Delta Limas that anybody else is wanting to have shipped. So there's an efficiency there of the Delta Lima organization receiving them, and distributing them all at once. Okay, so that's the outgoing. Let's go to the incoming. So to receive international cards, the ARRL uses bureaus within all of the various call areas, and there are 15 of them. And so for us, that is you and I, we are in the 7th call area. So the organization that handles our incoming, and I should say it's not just for us in Seattle, it's anyone that has a 7 in their call. It doesn't matter if they're living in Foreland, South Carolina.
Oh, interesting.
Right? If I am KK7PW and I'm living in New Jersey, my cards go through Willamette Valley DX Club and sent to me into New Jersey. All right. So, and that's even if I'm temporary, or let's just say I don't change my call and I'm KK7PW stroke Whiskey 2. Whiskey 2 meaning portable 2 in New Jersey. 7 land goes through Willamette. So bear that in mind wherever one happens. So if someone in Seattle has an 8 land call, a number 8 in their call, there's a good friend of ours, KL7QT, who's a KL call. Well, he's going to go through Alaska, KL. He's not going to go through Willamette. So anyway, you need to make sure that you are interacting with the correct call service area, and then go to Go to the Willamette website. To the,
Yep, just a second.
Yep.
All right.
So, all right, and scroll down, and you'll see right there. So basically, the way Willamette works, and likely is the case that many of the others do. I'm not going to go so far as to say they're all the same. Most of these QSL service providers, managers, have updated their routines similar to Willamette's, and Willamette does an excellent job of organizing and sending out their incoming QSLs. So basically, you register and create an account, and then using PayPal or some other exchange program, you create an amount of money that they have available to use for you to send you your cards when they get them. And that's in place of years ago where I would send a manila envelope with 6 or 8 blank self-addressed stamped envelopes and some money. And then they would use my envelopes and stuff them and then use my money to pay the postage for whatever the weight was. That's gone. I don't have to worry about envelopes anymore. I don't have to send them cash or anything. It's all. So what they do is they just debit my account or the weight of the number of cards that they're sending me. And then they'll send me written on the back of the envelope. I could probably log into my account if I really wanted to know, but they'll write on the back, you have $16 left of the 30 that you put in.
So you're prepaying them. So you load however much money you feel comfortable with, right? And they sort of give you guidelines, right? $10 is enough for 10 envelopes. So maybe you want to put in, 20 or 30 bucks. I think I put in like 30 bucks basically in my account.
Exactly.
And then as I receive those QSL cards, in fact, I can select, right? I want to get them monthly. I want to get them quarterly. I want to get whenever they've got a full batch or whatever that is.
Yeah.
I see. And then they'll sort of deduct from that total that I've got.
Yeah. And, the higher frequency is going to debit your account more quickly.
Right.
I think I have mine set to when full, and then I get a bunch. I may get a good 1.5 inches QSL cards, or something. I don't know, but they're very good. And I just want to take a moment to say, for any of the bureau staff that are doing this, thank you for what you do, and kudos for what you do very well, because I have never received somebody else's card by accident. And the cards show up actually in very good shape. They're not bent or torn or whatever. The envelopes, everything works. And they receive a lot of cards. If you go to scroll up a little bit, or scroll up, and the QSL Bureau sorters. Sorry, it was down a little bit. Right there. See the sorters? Yeah. So there's the laundry list of the radio ops, and they're responsible for those letters.
Right.
I think it's the first letter of the suffix.
Right. So this, for instance, this would be you and I both have KK prefix, right? So
but you would be L, first letter.
Oh, I see. So it's the first letter of the suffix, right? So L would be mine, and then you've got P here.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
I think that's how it works. So they do a great job, and I've lived in different places, and so I've used different QSL service managers, and I don't think I've ever had a disappointing experience. Everybody who volunteers to do this really is diligent for accuracy and timeliness. So I mention all this to say that if anyone listening is wanting to get in on QSL exchanging, which is a lot of fun and it's interesting, you get your cards printed and you learn, just try out these services. Now there's another way to do it as well, beyond just this using the bureau. This is what's referred to as using the bureau, because you're going in and out through the ARRL QSL bureau. Let's go to the next resource at Club Log.
This is the, let's see, is this the one? No, not that one.
No, not this one, yeah.
This one, I see Club Log. Oh, just Club Log. Oops.
That's okay. Just go to clublog.org. That's right. Okay. So up at the top, you see the OQRS.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So click on that. Oh, you have to log in. Sorry. Yeah,
All right.
okay. So OQRS.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what this does is it gives you the opportunity to both set up inbound and outbound direct QSL exchange or sending and receiving. So for you, you could set up, and I've set up, and many others set up, a way for an international radio op to request one of your cards. And I think what I said is for, I think maybe I charge $3 or $4 for postage or something, postage and envelope and whatever. I don't get that many of them, and that's not uncommon to charge a couple of dollars to cover the cost. And then, so this is one resource that I use to send my cards on request to others.
Okay.
Now go to the outbound. Okay. Now for outbound, you can, oh, was it outbound? I guess it would be incoming.
Okay.
So Club Log is not receiving any part of the, yeah. So incoming is where you set up your information and your parameters. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Outbound, sorry, is where you want to request from others QSL cards. So you would want to work like, you know, like that Alpha 8 Oscar Kilo in Liberia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if they have a OQRS account. They may or may not. I don't remember, but they will provide, if there's a participating DX station that you've worked, they will say, and you look them up on Club Log, they will say you can order direct QSL card from them.
I see.
And you'll go through PayPal. They'll tell you how much that service is. It's sometimes €4. It's not always in dollars, but it'll do the conversion.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll know your mailing address through your PayPal account.
So this is like a totally separate way to exchange QSL cards. So there's the bureau system where I'm myself sending a card to the outgoing bureau service, who sends it to the corresponding incoming bureau service at the other end, and then they will send it to the ultimate destination. That's one way. This is a different way where I can actually request to somebody, hey, I worked you, we've got evidence of that. I'm requesting that you send me a card, and Club Log somehow facilitates that. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes. And the thing is that they know that we worked in part because they and I are both using a logging program that sends a report, an uploaded report to Club Log.
I see.
That
So I could,
confirms.
right, I could even manually upload something if I had a log file locally.
Yes.
And so for instance, I have been using QRZ, and from QRZ, that's pushing it into Logbook of the World, and presumably from one of those, I could download the file and just upload it here, for instance. Does that sound right?
For instance, you can do that. You can also I use, for example, Log4OM.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll screen share and just show you in a moment what that is. But and I'm not going to go in depth into the logging functionality. There's a reason why I want to show you. But that one allows for automatic uploading to Club Log at the close of the program. right? So as soon as I'm done, if not before the close the program, it might be, I think that's what it is though. It's when I close down, it knows to send, and then Club Log knows that I worked Alpha 8 Oscar Kilo. Then I get back into Club Log in my account, and I should see indication, assuming that they use that.
Right.
All right. So this is handy because there are times when I may want to order directly and not wait what would otherwise be a potentially longer period of time to get a QSL card from this DXpedition. Right. So it's not, I'm not going to say that it's quicker, but direct with payment probably greases the skids a little bit than
Right. Because
waiting.
they are the person you're asking to send you the card, like that's not free for them, right? They have
Right.
to, like, it takes time. It takes, if it's a big expedition, they probably got dozens or hundreds or even I don't know how.
Tens
I
of
don't know what the
thousands.
right. Yeah, tons and tons and tons of these contacts that they're gonna have to ship out, and I mean, that takes a ton of effort, right? So they ask for some money in exchange for that to cover all of those costs and the
Absolutely.
time. And so this club log system is facilitating that. But what ends up happening at the end of the day, once all the payment has been sort of handled, they are still processing that stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, they're processing. Then they may have a QSL manager, which may not be located where the DXpedition occurred, obviously, or and it may be
Right, because if it's
somebody.
a little atoll in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there's no postal service there. You're not
Right.
going to get a stamp from, the tiny little beach in wherever it is, Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, it is that, and it's also though that it could be that the actual DXpedition team is either not going to return home, in a period of time. There just may be other extenuating circumstances where to not delay too greatly the return of QSL cards, they utilize a QSL manager
Hmm.
that manages all of the contacts on their behalf.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used QSL managers when I've operated in Africa and other countries. So there are lots of radio ops out there that are willing to serve in that capacity and volunteer to do it. So,
Right. So if
but
if I set this up for, what my inbound OQRS, what do I end up getting? Like, does Clublog send me an email or a notification of some kind, and then, that they've processed the payment or whatever, and that's dropped into my PayPal account or however that works? Then
yeah,
I
they're not going to process your payment. They don't
Okay.
have they what you for example, you'll use PayPal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you'll get an indication of somebody in whatever the call is in France, let's say, wants one of your QSL cards, and you right in on this screen, you would indicate what are the
I see.
conditions.
So I would say my PayPal account is whatever it is, please send $2 or whatever it is to cover.
Yeah. Now it could be that. It could also be that if you look up, I don't know if you can see mine if you
Yeah,
put in my
presumably I
call.
should be able to.
Yeah.
Where's
Log
the.
search to the right there. You click on
Right, because I haven't done any actual.
but there's
I don't have
mine.
any club log stuff connected, so.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, in any event, if one has worked me and they find me in OQRS, they will get my blurb that says you can do it through the bureau or you can do it direct, and I think it's $3 or $4, and I forget what else. I forget. I mean, there's a couple of simple instructions, but then they pay through PayPal. I'll get an alert and then I usually hand write, because there's no need for me to set up my label maker,
Mm-hmm.
to do my QSL. But if I received a lot of them, I probably would put in a sheet of those, the labels.
Right.
There's a brand of that. Whatever the brand is of those
The
labels?
Avery, whatever.
Avery, that's what it is. So you just put a sheet of Avery's in there, and you can print out, and then you just stick them in.
So this sort of solves the problem of, hey, I've worked this really interesting station. I have no idea how to tell them that I want to get a QSL card, because they're not just going to send a QSL card to everybody unprompted, right? And so they may, in fact, on their QRZ page, I think I've seen it before, where they say, oh, I accept QSL requests through Clublog.
Right.
And so lots of people use just like lots of people have a QRZ page, lots of people use Clublog. And so if you've worked somebody interesting, chances are they're going to have a Clublog set up. So if I've got my logs syncing into Clublog, which is an easy thing to do, and lots of people should do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can then go into Clublog after the fact, do that log search, find the QSO. There's like a click on it or something like that, and then that process sort of facilitates me asking them, hey, I want to get a QSL card from you.
Yeah,
and that's
totally.
how I, as a ham, can now, that's the way that I can get a QSL card, is I need to ask someone for it, and the way I ask for it is maybe through Clublog. On the other hand, maybe they have a different mechanism that they want to use, and that would be listed on their QRZ page or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah. So they'll indicate if they don't do the bureau, or they do, or as you say, through Clublog or some other form. The other thing I just want to mention is that it is true that when you're offering or paying what they're requesting as $3 or $4, there you go. Yeah, click right there.
This is your QRZ page, and you even say, hey, if you want a QSL card from me, I use Clublog. So
yeah, so click
great.
there, see what happens. Click on it.
Yeah, and I bet even I could do a log search. Let's see.
But
So
what I want to mention is that for the DXpeditions, if they are requesting $3 or $4, yes, it's true that it's covering the cost of the card and the processing the envelopes and all this. But the other thing is that you're also helping to subsidize their DXpedition that you're benefiting from.
Right.
And those things can be expensive. A DXpedition can be $100,000 depending on where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to a remote island and it's in the middle of nowhere, and they have to hire a ship to take them and all their equipment out, and they have to stay out for 10 days to 2 weeks, and all the insurance and airfare and all that stuff, plus equipment, plus insurance on the equipment, all blah, 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 blah. That can easily add up. So your little $4 chip in for a QSL card is actually, and you can offer to offer a little more money on top of that if you really want to support their because they're giving you a country that you need.
Right.
So.
So in that sense, your QSL card is not just something that you're collecting like a stamp, right? It's sort of a badge that shows that you supported that expedition, that DXpedition. Yeah. Well, that's really cool.
It is very cool. Yeah. So anyway, so I think that's the only other thing I wanted to show, but I don't necessarily need to do this now. We could do it at some other time because all I'll do is simply say that depending on the logging program that one chooses, there's oftentimes, not always, but there's often a utility in that software program that allows you to auto export and print labels for the contacts that you've worked.
Oh, neat.
Right, and they interact with QRZ or whatever the logging program is online, so that you can it auto populates their mailing address.
Yeah. I bet we could do a whole segment on logging programs, setting it up, connecting it to the different, other because that's interesting. Is it's like a whole network of these different sites and services and things, and you might use a logging program that uploads to Logbook of the World and QRZ and Club Log, and they all plug together and do interesting things. Okay, cool.
Maybe let's just do this for like 2 minutes, just real quick. If you give me, let me share screen. Do I have permission to do it?
Yeah, you should just be able to share screen there, and as soon as you do that, I'll pull you up on the big screen for everyone else.
So I'm gonna do Log4OM right there. Okay, and then allow.
All right, and I'll pull you up here. Okay.
All right. So I use Log4OM. It's a free logger that you can download. Just Google it, Log4OM #2 for the second version. Or there are many updates. So that's not a serial reference as much as it is the second generation of Log4OM. So anyway, I'm using the second generation, version 2.32.1, so you can download it for free. Anyway, there's a lot of information on this club log. I'm not going to go through the whole program because as you say, I think we could devote a segment just to look at what all this can say. But I want to show you that here under utilities, there's label print.
Great.
Right? So you select label print, and you can select from my log archive whatever station I want to print a label for, and it will auto export and speak to my printer, which I don't have turned on right now, so I'm not going to print anything. But if I wanted to, this is how I would do that. And there are YouTube videos, in case anybody wants to have a tutorial. There are YouTube videos that others have produced on how to use Log4OM among other programs to print labels. Right, so there's lots of resources out there.
Yeah, and we'll have links to all the stuff that we're talking about here in the description, show notes below. So,
all right, so that's all I wanted to do on the. I'm going to stop sharing here. So there you have it with some basics around QSL cards. The last thing that is not a link reference, but I'll just mention, is that one of the beautiful dilemmas that comes with getting in on QSL cards is what to do with the mountain of cards as you start to receive them. So again, look for examples online about how people have displayed them, how they organize and store them, and there are ways in which you can get your cards beyond Logbook of the World. You can get your cards physically counted and recorded for officially serving as evidence of working countries for your overall country count. So anyway, how you manage them matters, because you'll if your experience is anything like mine has been, for years to come, you will receive lots and lots and lots and lots of cards if you are active on the HF bands. And so how you manage that volume. For years, when I was in college and in my other various academic adventures, I would use all of my QSL cards as bookmarks. Right. So when I go back to my bookshelf these days and I open up an old textbook from 20 years ago, I'll find a Cuba card that I hadn't seen for ages, but that was my bookmark.
Yeah, that's great.
They make excellent bookmarks, and they're a lot of fun. I don't know if I have one right here, if I could pull it out. Let me just see. Anyway, well, hold on once. Let me just see if I can get one real quick.
Okay.
devices. Okay, well, I wasn't prepared, so I don't have at my fingertips. It's probably on another bookshelf, but anyway, it's not that big a deal. It's just kind of fun. But you never know what you'll discover. That for me, it was like a whole new discovery.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from a QSL card from years
Yeah,
ago.
right. It's yeah.
Book. Anyway. Okay, so I think that anything else on this subject?
No, I think that's everything. We did a nice deep dive there.
All right, so we'll close out on this, and now we've reached nearly the last segment of our show, which is the on-air demonstration. And what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to share screen again, and we are going to do a little bit of JS8Call. And where is my JS8Call? It's right here. But I want to make sure. Oh, I see. It would be on the same log for OM. Let's try this. No, it's still showing log for OM. I didn't see a reference to my JS8Call window. Let me stop sharing this and try it again. Oh, so maybe I just need, oh, there it is right there. Okay. Voila. Okay.
All
Got
right.
it?
Here we go.
All right. So here's what I wanted to do as our feature demonstration this time around. When you and I were talking before, I know we've done a little bit of sideband. We did a little bit of CW. This is one of my favorite digital modes that one can, I use it on HF. You can also use it on other bands and very high frequency. But on the HF bands, and this happens to be on 20 meters right here, this is one of my favorite digital modes for several reasons. First off, and it's free. If you go to a JS8Call website, let's just start. Do I have to give you the screen back?
Nope, that's fine. I can
Okay.
pull it up just a second.
All right, yeah, let's just do that first. So anybody that wants to get in on this, and you have some sound card, digital sound card capability, whether it be using a DigiRig, using a signal link, maybe your 7300 or your Yaesu rig, your ICOM, your Yaesu rig or whatever has a sound card built in. Whatever it allows you to get on digital, go to JS8Call.com and download this program. And the beauty of this digital program is that it has a very similar setup, look, and feel like FT8.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody who gets an allergic reaction to FT8, you know, and or you know is not as enthusiastic about FT8 as others, I am not active on FT8 at all. Really, I don't use. I can, and I've played a little bit with it, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not active with it for various reasons. But JS8Call, which has a very similar look and feel, is a very different animal. It should not be conflated or confused with just being another FT8 digital mode. So that's for anyone out there that's listening that, you know, might have some bias against digital HF programs. In this case, this is a free form text messaging type program. And free form meaning that you're not limited to the number of words or characters. So I could send a very long, multi-line, multi-sentence message to you, and it may take some time to work its way through, but I can say whatever I want to say, and the program is not going to constrain me,
Mm.
which is really nice.
Right. Whereas
Secondly,
with FT8, there sort of is a really rigid protocol of exactly what you send, how you send it, when you respond, what you say, and it's
and the number
like
of letters.
yeah, it's very limited. So it's great for making, like, yes, I actually had some kind of contact, but it's not really communication per se.
Yes. Yeah. So let's. All I want to do is point out that that's the website. People go there, they can download. And now let's go back to my screen so that I can walk through the program.
All right.
So what I did is I downloaded, I installed, and when you install this for the first time, you'll be prompted just like you would in your installation of uh, WJSTX, I think it is for FT8.
WSJTX.
Yeah. So just like for that, when you first install it, you'll be prompted to do some basic setup. So you do the same thing. If you've done that, you already are 2/3 of the way of knowing how to do this. So in this case, the shortcut here, you can still use the file, the menu programs here. What I do is I just click on my call, and that takes me into settings. I'm going to wait until I'm done transmitting here. So here you get into settings, and it allows you to set up your radio. I'm using my 7300. I have cat control, and I'm running in split mode and data mode. All right. And if I can test the cat functioning, and it turns green to say, yep, properly configured.
Mm.
Oh, and by the way, let's do a test push to talk or a test transmit. Yep, it's working. All right. So that's working. And then here's the cat control. I happen to be on COM 11. I'm running at 38,400 baud. This configuration is nearly identical to what I'm doing in my, if I had FT8, and I do have it set up.
Yeah, and a lot of these concepts are exactly the same concept, whether you're using something like JS8Call, or you're using something like FL Digi, or you're using something like
Yes.
Vara even, right? These ideas of
Yes.
COM ports and sound card, and sort of you got to pay that price once to figure out what it all means. But if you can get a sense of that, about what does the COM port mean in the context of all of these different digital programs, like it's the same concept now for JS8Call that you learned when you set up Vara or whatever other digital program you were using.
Yep. Great point. So the configurations have a very similar look and feel, and there are different ways of setting up. I use a program that allows me to do multiple digital COM port configurations so that they don't conflict. Right. But in any event, so in this one, this audio tab here shows my selection of sound card inputs and outputs. And for ICOM rigs, and it may be the same for the other rigs as well, I always look for USB audio codec, and it happens to be number 2 for me.
Right.
So anyway, you configure that. In the general station, put your call sign in, you put your grid square in, some other content is auto-populated, or you can put it in. All right, so, and then over here, you click on the frequency, and it gives you the drop down of the frequencies per bands. Right, so JS8Call is intended to operate on a particular frequency within whatever band you want to work. So this makes it easy. It's almost channelized in that way.
Right. Yeah. So it's sort of like FT8. There's kind of a well-known frequency for each band, and like that's the FT8 frequency for 20 meters.
Yes.
The same thing with JS8Call is it's like that's the JS8Call, which is actually kind of nice too, because if you're operating CW, let's say, you don't want to be you don't want to do a CQ on that frequency of CW, right? Because that's
Yeah,
the only people on it are going to be doing JS8Call, right?
that's right. There's a segment, there's a part of our bands that are designated for these digital modes. And so if you're not operating digital, you don't want to call CQ
Right.
there in sideband. You'll just be interfering. So anyway, I've already pre-selected 20 meters. I am at 14.078, and my rig is set to digital USB-D, upper sideband D for digital.
Right, right.
Right? So your rigs need to have that designation or some way of sending and receiving in digital mode.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's pretty straightforward, but
And did the JS8Call system itself put your rig in that mode, or did you have to go to your rig and hit the buttons to put it into the mode?
I believe JS8Call will do that for my rig by configuration.
Mm-hmm.
There are other programs that I run that do not do that automatically.
Right.
And so I always just double check
Yep.
and just turn it on and turn it off as need be.
Right.
So,
Because your rig is on right now. It's got the same display that it has when you're operating directly with the rig, right? And so it's showing you exactly how it's configured. It shows that it's tuned into this frequency. It shows that it's
yep,
on 20 meters, and it shows the
yep,
mode that it's in, this upper sideband -D.
yes,
Okay, cool.
totally.
Very cool.
So, and I'm in split mode so that it will split to 14.077 on transmit. It receives on 7.8. So now what I want to do is just say, I want to describe what we're looking at here.
Right.
So in a
And just
nutshell,
for the viewers, I think we covered this a little bit in our last video about split and what split is and why you do split and how you can use split in CW and you can use split in other things. And this is just using that same idea of just two frequencies, one for send and one for receive. And
yeah,
your radio supports that. That's one of those settings that your radio can actually do. And JS8Call is making use of that feature, right?
yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
cool.
And it's to prevent collisions and just ways of reducing interference on the transmit and receive frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's commonly used in CW, especially, let's say, for DX stations that are getting pileups.
Yeah.
And
We have a neat segment actually about you operating a CW using split to do a CW pileup. It was pretty cool. It was a pretty neat video. Well, I'll include a link to that in the show notes so that people can see
great.
that.
Yeah, it's very handy. And I don't use split with just anyone that I'm chatting with. I mean, we could, but it's not really necessary. And it then occupies two frequencies of that band, which may not be necessary and may just get in the way of other people. But if you're a DXpedition and people know that that's what you're doing, then they sort of avoid that range. So in this case, now I should say that JS8Call doesn't require that you run split. So if for whatever reason your rig is having difficulty configuring to run split, it will do it for you. But in my situation, using my 7300, I am running split via the rig, and it works beautifully and easily. So first off, I want to say that the reason why I find JS8Call to be just so terrific is because it's an excellent communication mode for short and long distances on HF, and it's used by many people around the world. And you can send and receive both synchronous and asynchronous messages, meaning that I can send a message to someone and leave it in someone else's mailbox. And then when whoever I'm sending that to, who did not happen to be online at the time, when they send out either a heartbeat or a CQ, and I'll show you what that means in a moment, when they send out a message of themselves, that station that's holding the message for them, when they hear them and it's anyone in the system, but that particular station, they will alert that station that there's a message for them to be received, and then they'll get it. So it's sort of a non-internet based message delivery system, which is really cool. That notwithstanding, all of this, what I'm about to show you, is us being able to have live text-based interactions with stations elsewhere in the country or the world, all on HF on relatively low power. You can run high power. Sometimes I do if the conditions aren't that great, but usually I can work anywhere I want on 20 watts, or less.
Very cool.
Right? QRP. On my 705, I can work JS8Call on 3 watts, and have reliable. Okay, so what I'm gonna there are among many other functions here. This window right here, you can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse move?
Yeah.
Okay, so in this left area, this is the incoming messages and incoming station information. All right. This middle top are the messages that I've either responded to or I've sent out myself. And the red ones are my own transmitted messages. This bottom center is where I prepare my messaging. Sometimes it's auto-populated, sometimes it's what I type. And then over on the right here are the stations I've heard. And the star next to the stations are those that I can hear directly versus those that I've heard by way of other stations.
Very cool.
Okay. And this will give you, usually I thought I had distance right there. I got to add distance. So this will give you the distances and the bearings of where these stations are. All right. So, and then lastly up here are groups that when you put out a call for responses or for contacts, you can sub-choose or sub-focus what types of stations are you looking to connect with. So in this case, there's amateur radio emergency services. This is an MCOM related event. There's a fellow online, OH8STN, who runs the Off-Grid Ham Radio YouTube channel. This is his subgroup. Skywarn is weather, severe weather events. So there's a whole bunch, and you can either create or follow by adding groups to your JS8Call configuration using the ampersand name. And I'll just show you, if you go back here, you'll see them right here.
Or is it the at sign?
Yeah, the at sign. Not ampersand, sorry. So the at sign, and then that's the group. You add these within the settings. So 2 functions here. Well, before I tell you that, so of these stations, at least what's visible at the moment, I have heard directly Kilo Bravo 8 Uniform Victor November, and it says who is that person hearing? That person is hearing among all those other stations. Me, I'm in there, KK7PW, and heard by KK7PW. On that person's end, they're seeing their version of that same information. They were heard by me. Okay, so I'm going to select KB8 UVN. I'm going to go down to directed messages here, select that button, and here I have a whole host of canned, sort of auto-populated responses or requests that I can make of the station. And one of which I'm going to send is, who are you hearing? Now, KB8, I don't know yet, but let's just assume that they're in Ohio, somewhere in 8 land. So I'm going to ask, who are you hearing? Because they're closer to the East Coast. There's a chance that they're hearing European stations that I won't hear. I'm going to say, who are you hearing? So I'm going to select that. It's going to auto-populate, and I'm about to transmit, and I'm transmitting right now. Red button. I'm sending, and then I'll wait for his response. I don't know how old that is, but I'm assuming here. I don't know if that's him right there. We've got some information coming back. You can see these waterfall indicators. So let's see what he comes back with, if anything. There's something coming back.
And so is his JS8Call application automatically responding to your requests? Because you asked like a super standard, like there's like a protocol for this, basically.
Yes, it's right in it's in here, and I selected him among all the other stations available. Who are you hearing? Now it could be that's stale, and for whatever reason, conditions have changed since we've been talking, and I put out under 30 watts. So the other thing I just want to show you, just as an example here, is Heartbeat. Heartbeat sends out a statement of simply testing the water, testing the air. Who's hearing me? So I turn this on for an automatic every 15 minutes, or I can right click and send one now. And I'll send out a heartbeat, and I'm going to turn my power up a little bit just so that I can have a better shot of getting a response. And I'm going to send out a heartbeat, and then we'll see how the waterfall performs. So we have I'm on a 10-second fast mode cycle. Once this is done transmitting in 10 seconds, then we'll wait and we'll see who responds. We got one coming right here, one coming there, one coming there. We got a slew of them coming back. Here we go. So we got 3 heartbeat responses. KW9W, that 8-land call, and a W2, maybe in New Jersey or New York. I don't know where they happen to be. And if we scroll down here, there they are. So you can see I'm hearing them directly. So let me do the W2 JKT, which just responded. I'm going to choose him, and I'm going to say, what stations are you hearing? I'll send that, and let's see if he responds. Now, what I may do in a moment, and then we'll wrap it up with this, is I may try to reach out to one of these and have a live.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Now,
because it could be that they're operating in entirely automated mode, right? They just have their JS8Call app running, connected to their radio, and they're off having lunch or whatever.
Well, yeah, it shouldn't be unattended, but it's true that the message that I just sent would be responded to as a triggered request.
Right. So they may not be interested in having an actual contact the way that you would if someone was like calling CQ on upper sideband, right?
So here's the response that I just got from them. So W2JKT is hearing me, as well as VE2AAQ and OZ1 in Denmark. Right. So what I could do, let me demonstrate a way of relaying a message to the OZ station. So I'm going to send a message to, let's see, this is storing a message. I want to relay the message. Please relay right here. So I'm asking W2JKT to send a message to OZ1QT, and then a forward caret. Greetings from Seattle, 7-3. And he'll know my call. So I hit enter. So now what W2, they're going to receive my message and they're going to digipede and send that. So once this is done, it's out of my hands. OZ2, OZ1 QT, if they're there, can reply back through W2 JKT if he can't hear me directly.
And that OZ1 QT, where in the world roughly are they?
That's the Denmark prefix, I think.
Denmark. Interesting, yeah.
All right. So now what I'm going to do, now that that's done, I'm going to turn my heartbeat back on, because when you do a directed message, and notice right here, there's an acknowledgement. The ACK confirms.
Mm-hmm.
The caret, the diamond at the end confirms that the message is done. You want to make sure that you see a diamond before you start to transmit, or else you're going to go over top.
Right.
All right.
So you keep the line clear. You keep the frequency clear until you get that full round trip.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was through a center hop, right? Through someone digipeded it.
Yes. Now I don't have to wait for OZ1 to get back. I just need to wait for the acknowledgement from the W2 station.
I see.
That it's done.
So you know that they have now digipeded it. They've relayed it. Whether or not OZ1 QT actually received it is still, who knows?
Yeah, and it's hard to say that, you know, if W2 is involved in a queue with somebody else, then it could be that my relay will be delayed until they're able to do it. So it may not be instantaneous, but OZ1's going to get it. That's the beauty of it. So I'm going to turn my heartbeat back on, and I'm also going to call CQ now. So I'm going to select CQ, all call. That is to anyone here or anyone else. I'm sending out a CQ. And let's see if anybody replies. And if they don't, then I'm going to reach out to one other person before we wrap this up. So I leave JS8Call on while I'm doing other work. You can turn on a bell or a ding. It'll tell me when somebody wants to talk to me or if there's a message for me. It's the impression that I want to leave the audience here is that this is not FT8, not to down that digital mode, because there's a lot of people that are into it. But for people that aren't, this is actually a mode that has a different arena.
Right.
It's a whole different domain of functionality. So it's a good thing. Okay. So waiting on that while I'm waiting on that CQ. Now, you don't get responses from a CQ like you do a heartbeat. A heartbeat is getting a response from stations automatically. But the CQ, if somebody wants to respond to me, they would. They're not yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to KW9W and ask him or her, what's your info? What's your station info?
So now, is this someone that responded to your CQ, or is this someone that responded to Heartbeat and you're just proactively reaching out?
Well, I am proactively, but as I'm doing that, I just got a response from W5SDR on a HAL copy. And now I'm going to send them automatically the HAL copy. Let's see, I'm going to choose W5SDR. Okay, so KW9W is sending me their info right now. Now this is an odd, so they're using an FT891 at 75 watts.
So you've got a few different. You're actually talking to a few different people right now, right? You've got the W5 SDR who wants to get a signal report. You've got the K. Sorry, what was the other call sign?
The KW9W.
KW9W, who's giving you just some information about their shack. So this is kind of neat. This is like a chat room.
Yeah. So I'm sending this to W5SDR, and then I'm also going to send to W5 SDR something more freeform. I'm just going to say W5 SDR. Greetings from Seattle. And just see if let's get something in response. So we'll just take a couple more minutes and then we'll. This is just an example of some of the features that can be easily used in JS8Call, and it's just worth checking out. Okay, so I don't know if SDR, they should be there. They sent me that message earlier. Notice right here, I think what I inadvertently did is I sent a message on top of KW9W because they weren't quite done. The diamond was, you see that? And so 75 watts with a ham stick. Then the diamond. So
75 watts with a hand. Nice, yeah.
So here comes a W5 SDR now. So right there, he's going to. So now he's live. So now I'm going to start interacting with W5 SDR. They're in New Mexico. Now, for whatever reason, I didn't get some of that. So notice you really have to make sure that your conditions are proper for this. I'm going to go up to the mode here. I'm set to fast. I'm going to slow it down to normal speed. And he might be running normal speed. Or she's going to say, hello from Seattle. Please send again. And we'll try it. Just see what this does. Now, notice that when I went to normal speed, the routine is 15 seconds long, not 10. There's a turbo mode that takes you to 6 seconds.
Okay.
So, but you want the other station you want to be in parity with what they're able to sustain, otherwise you're going to get these dropped bits.
Right. And this is one of the, again, right, as someone who just recently took exams, I've got all this stuff floating in my head. They talk about different kinds of encoding schemes and error detection and error correction and things like that. And JS8Call must have some of those kinds of features, the same kinds of stuff you learn about.
Yeah, my understanding is that this protocol has less exacting error correction than VAR AC. VAR AC allows for a much more precise correction and success rate, let's say. Whereas this one, you're going to have some dropped information if you're not careful. So he's getting back to me in my signal report, and he sent he took my request to send again my signal report again, but maybe he's adding something to it now. We'll see. But it's nice to be able to interact with somebody in New Mexico. That's kind of neat. Yeah. Signal report +11 into South New Mexico with a diamond. He's done. I'm going to say, roger that. Thanks for the QSO 73 and enjoy your day. All right. So we'll send that off and then we'll close this out. And then down here, there are a number of switchable items. This waterfall can change color. You can change filters. So that gives you control on how you visualize what you're seeing. And if you want to try to work a weak signal, then you can really dial them in. It's kind of nice. All right. Now, because I'm on normal speed mode, it takes longer.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a free form mode. I could have sent something that's like, weather here is really good, and for lunch I'm going to have vegetable soup. Oh, and by the way, this afternoon I've got a club meeting, and then I've got and I could like create multiple lines, and I'll be here for
Right.
30 minutes waiting for this thing. All right. So there's brevity is best. All right, so we'll just, I don't know if they're going to have anything to say. Otherwise, we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, I just pulled up some information about JS8 as a protocol. It's really interesting reading about, this is just one, right? Some guy, Jordan Shearer, Kilo November 4, Charlie Romeo Delta, first released in January 4th, 2019, and he just wanted to use FT8 to do chat instead of just sharing location and signal report information.
Exactly. And it's really fantastic. I really like to use it with my QRP rigs because you can work very long distances on very low power. It works beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And on any platform, Linux, Apple, or Windows. So it's worth checking out. Okay, so last thing, he's coming back to me. Let's see, did I get anything? I think he's trying to say 7-3 from New Mexico, but I have to say I don't think my hex beam is pointing right at him. So he might be coming off the side, and I didn't turn to him. But in any event, let's close this out.
Yeah.
Hopefully this was a worthwhile orientation to JS8Call. If anybody ever sees me on, connect, and we can. All right, I'm going to stop sharing here. So, Nick, that brings us to about the end of our show this time. We have a number of things that we're working on for next month. We've got another interview coming.
Mm-hmm.
We have a new double X factor. So we're going to get Dave to work with us to record some next episodes, and that'll happen. And you and I were talking about possibly doing a field activation.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So maybe we'll set up a camera or two and figure out a way to get us out into a park or something.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, I think that's about it. Anything else for the good of the order?
No, I think that was great. A lot of good material here.
Yeah, we did really well. Okay. Well, Nick, thank you. And everybody, I hope you'll join us again for our next episode next month in May. Otherwise, get out to the Hamfests and see you on the air. KK7PW.
Yep, KK7LZM 73.
All righty.